All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to this weekly forecast. In this forecast, we're going to be looking at the upcoming week, and that's starting on, tomorrow. So, June 15th, all the way to Friday, June 19th. Okay. So, um, let's start by looking at the economic calendar first. And yes, I'm watching the World Cup at the same time. Germany is giving Curacao a thrashing. It's entertaining. But let's focus on what matters here. All right, so on Monday, we do have the interest rate for the Bank of Japan, which is interesting because it seems like they're gonna hike the interest rates just like the ECB did last week. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I think it was on Thursday or Wednesday maybe. Well, we can look here on the economic calendar. ECB. Yeah, anyways, they hiked the interest rates in Europe, the Central Bank of Europe. And so now it does seem like the rate of the Bank of Japan is also going to increase by 25 basis points. So that is going to be really interesting. Yeah, let's keep an eye on that because oh my God, it's 7-1. Sorry, I'm watching the game at the same time, guys. So Kai Havertz just scored. Hold on, let me show you that goal. All right. Sorry, I don't usually do that, but it was a beautiful goal by Kai Havertz. 7-1. That reminds me of Germany against Brazil. I think that was like 2014 or something. I don't remember, but wow, what a goal. Yep. Look at that chip. Wow. Beautiful goal. Well, it's over for Curacao. When they equalized earlier at 1-1, I thought that maybe there was hope for them, but now it's not. I don't believe in that anymore. Anyways, okay, so now move on to Tuesday. We have some Australian dollar news with the Bank of Australia interest rate. And right now it does seem like they're gonna keep it stable. So no hike here for Australia, but there will be a hike for Japan, and we need to keep an eye on that. Then we have CPI for GBP, which is growing from 2.8 to 3%. That's not good. We have a speech from President Trump. I don't really know what that's about. Then we have obviously FOMC, and that's going to be the main topic of the week. Right now, it seems like they're going to keep it neutral, but we never know. We could get a surprise. I don't know what Kevin Warsh is going to do. He's more of a hawk in his he's more hawkish, which means that he prefers to hike interest rates. Um, and so we could have a surprise here. It could be increasing. Then we have some New Zealand dollar news. Then on Thursday, GBP, we have some CHF news, again GBP, and it seems like the central bank of um, of England is not gonna increase their interest rate, well, of the UK, sorry. And finally, we have a few US dollar orange folders that are not really interested. Okay, so honestly, that's a really packed economic calendar. And I like what I'm seeing. There's a lot of interest rates decisions coming for the USD, but also we could see a hike in the Japanese interest rates, and that's going to have a lot of impact on the broader market. So overall, I'm expecting some good volatility this week. All right. Now let's look at the charts. So right here on the dollar, basically what happened last week is that we reached this high, which is a swing high on the daily. We swept it and now we're going back lower. But we did actually create a weekly fair value gap, and that shows a lot of strength in the dollar. Well, a lot. I mean, it's not the greatest fair value gap, okay? We have to admit that it's not the best fair value gap in the world, but it's there. So we could have a retracement back into it. I think that's the next logical target for me. And from that weekly fair value gap, we can continue higher. The 4 hour doesn't seem too clear because we had this 4 hour fair value gap here. We had a sting into it, but now it seems like we want to continue higher. So we'll have to monitor that. I think the dollar, I would say, don't trade any of the majors tomorrow. Just wait until we get the retracement inside that weekly fair value gap, and then we can be taking a look at the majors. Okay, so for now, I'm not going to take a look at all the majors because I don't want this weekly forecast to be like 40 minutes long because just the dollar is just not ready right now. Okay. So until we get that retracement back inside the weekly fair value gap, then I'll take a look at all the majors in a daily forecast. Okay. But for tomorrow, let's not look at the dollar. It's not ready to move yet. Now, moving on to gold, the metals. Um, on the weekly time frame. Okay, so it's hard to tell right now because I mean there has been a lot of bearish momentum, especially last week and the week before that. But now we've reached this major low, and I have a feeling that we've reached very low, and that we can now have a retracement. So honestly, I'm seeing bullish here on gold for the short term. And something we can take a look at, I know it's not confirmed yet, but this range right here on the weekly from this swing high to this low shows that it wouldn't be crazy to see a retracement, to see price go higher all the way back, to that 4,500 area right here, the golden area basically, to then continue lower. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. So that's why I'm saying that short term, we could see some higher prices here because that wick here at the bottom, it's pretty strong. That's pretty strong, and the chances that we create a weekly fair value gap here are pretty slim. Okay, so then on the daily, we had this daily fair value gap that right now, first candle, we could say yes, it's a rejection, but it's really not a good rejection. So I would wait for the two candle rejection, so the candle of Monday, basically, see if we actually push lower from here or higher. I think that most likely we're going to continue higher. We're going to disrespect that daily fair value gap because the momentum coming against here is very strong. The bullish momentum here is very strong. And also we have a 4 hour fair value gap lower just in case. So yeah, overall, I'm seeing higher prices tomorrow here on gold. Silver, let's delete some stuff here. Yeah, I actually took a trade on silver on Friday, but never hit take profit. Um, okay. So here on silver, this is not relevant anymore. I'm gonna remove this. Sorry, I'm just cleaning up my charts so everything looks good. Okay, so mm, now looking at silver, things are changing. Maybe gold is not gonna go as high as I thought it could. Because look at silver here. Look at this. We created a pretty good weekly fair value gap. Honestly, it looks like a really strong fair value gap, and it's overlapping with this fair value area, which is beautiful. Yes, okay, I agree. This retracement that we're seeing right here on why do I still have position? Okay, so this retracement that we're seeing right here, yes, it's strong, I can agree, but at the same time, we still haven't reached this target, right? So we didn't grab that liquidity. So this move could be a fake. It's not backed up by real liquidity because the real liquidity still didn't get taken. So I don't know. I do like what I'm seeing here on on silver from that weekly fair value gap and that fair value area. I think the most likely thing to happen here is um, we reach for that fair value area and then we move lower. And so yes, short term, a little bit just like gold, short term, we could see some higher prices. But towards the end of the week, so at the beginning of the week, I'm going to be focusing on looking at a long. So tomorrow and Tuesday, for example, on the metals. But then as we get into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, then I might start looking for shorts. We'll see. It depends on how things evolve, but right now that's the plan. So that's it for the metals. Now moving on to crude oil. So I didn't really follow again what happened this weekend. I just know that apparently um, they were gonna have an agreement. They were gonna sign a deal today, basically. That's the last piece of news that I heard, which I think is very unlikely, but hey, we'll see what happens. Um, but apparently they were gonna sign a deal this Sunday. We'll see what happens. But I think just with that type of news, I think just that is going to probably open crude oil with a gap to the downside because that's good for oil prices right now. So yeah, last week, very strong bearish week. Um, we have the opportunity to create a weekly fair value gap this week. So yeah, right now, the most logical thing for crude oil to do is just reach back inside this monthly fair value gap. That's the only thing it can do now. Okay. So I don't know exactly how we're gonna get there. There is a daily fair value gap here, but it's not likely that we're gonna retrace there. And then 4 hour, don't have anything either. So tomorrow it's just gonna be about seeing, and I want to see do we actually open with a gap, which I think is very likely, but we'll see. Okay. But honestly, as soon as we reach that monthly fair value gap, I think it's gonna explode higher. Like I don't know. I just don't think this war is close to being over, you know? Um, they're not gonna reach an agreement. Anyways, we can talk about that if you want, but we'll see what happens. But for now, lower prices staying back inside the monthly fair value gap. Bitcoin quickly. Um, yeah, well, that we are most probably gonna create a weekly fair value gap. Well, actually, we absolutely will create this fair value gap for sure. There's still, 5 hours to go, but overall, we will create that fair value gap. So now, next target is the context low. And yeah, basically just a sting inside that fair value gap. We also have a fair value area, technically. That fair value area, it's a little bit hard to spot, but it's here. This is a fair value area, okay? So from the daily, yeah, I'm expecting price to go all the way back up to 66K, something like that, 66K. And then from here, we start going lower. And then it's going to be time to buy Bitcoin, not financial advice, guys. All right. And now let's move on to the indices. So the indices, okay, going back to what I was saying in Thursday's forecast. So the forecast for SpaceX IPO. So SpaceX IPO didn't really pop as I thought it would for starters. I think at the end of the day it was just up like 17%, which is It's good, but it's not like crazy. I was expecting minimum 30% on the first day. So honestly, by the way, I didn't get in. I wasn't able to get any shares. I did reserve some shares in advance, but there was no guarantee that I would actually get them, and I didn't get any of them. So didn't get in on the IPO, but that's fine. Honestly, I was very disappointed by the performance of SpaceX on the first day, and so it didn't make the markets move that much, to be honest. So, anyways, we'll see. We'll see what happens this week. But right now on the S&P, we do have a weekly fair value gap. It's not the best fair value gap, but it's there, which I think my bias is still bearish here on the indices. I think we can sweep this high, which is stinging back, inside that weekly fair value gap, and then we can go lower from there. So again, a little bit like gold. I recently, like for the past 2 weeks, gold, silver, S&P, and Nasdaq, they've all been moving together. That's where the correlation has been for the past 2 weeks, and so um, it's pretty much the same setup as gold and silver, where on the short term we want to see higher prices, and then from like somewhere like Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, we want to look for shorts. Okay. So that's it for the S&P right here. And now let's look at Nasdaq. Okay, so Nasdaq didn't create that weekly fair value gap. So that's annoying. I'm not gonna lie. Let's see what we have. But also the reason Nasdaq doesn't have that weekly fair value gap is that SpaceX was listed under Nasdaq. So that's why Nasdaq had a much better day on well, much better. Well, it did 0.67%. Okay, so 0.7%, and here we did 0.5% on the S&P. So overall on Friday, Nasdaq performed better than the S&P, but that's because SpaceX was being listed on Nasdaq, not on the S&P. And so to me, that explains it. Now, we don't have that weekly fair value gap, so Nasdaq is stronger than the S&P, but we still have this swing high right here, which I think we could potentially sweep to continue lower. I'm keeping my bias here. I don't see a new all-time high this week. Honestly, I could be wrong. I could be very wrong, by the way. But right now, that's what I believe in. If the market proves me wrong, then I'll change my bias for sure. So that's it for the indices. And now let's look at all the crosses. Well, not all of them. Well, we're gonna go over them quickly. Okay. Canadian. So the JPY pairs could be interesting this week, actually. So let's put some focus on JPY pairs here, because if there is a rate hike, then that's bad for the JPY, for the Japanese yen, basically. That's bad. So that means like, yeah. So Canadian dollar, for example, is gonna gain. Hold on, I'm a little bit mixed up here. All right, everyone. I'm sorry. I'm back. I took a break of recording this video because I was really concerned about how hiking interest rates would affect the currency, because I was getting a little bit like mixed up in my head. And so I went and done some research, and yes, okay, so basically, hiking interest rates, it's it's good for the currency, okay? So it makes the currency go higher. So here JPYX is going to go higher. And so that means that a pair like Canadian dollar JPY will go lower. So right here, that's what we're seeing on the chart. It makes more sense. I'm sorry for the confusion, but now I'm sure about this. So we should be seeing lower prices on all these JPY pairs, logically speaking. So Canadian dollar JPY staying back inside the daily fair value gap to continue lower. That's what I'm going to be waiting for. We can we can put an alert here, and let's put a little flag on it. There we go. CHF JPY should also be going lower from, yeah, from the weekly fair value gap. And the weekly fair value gap. It's tiny, but it's there. We can continue lower from that. So yeah, I think JPY pairs this week, yeah, that could be very interesting. GBP JPY is much stronger, so I don't like it. Euro JPY as well. Australian dollar JPY. We do have a weekly fair value gap, but that weekly fair value gap is also a daily fair value gap. So let's just keep this one with the alert right there. That is interesting to continue lower. Then New Zealand dollar JPY. Ugh, I don't like this one. I don't like this one. So yeah, Australian dollar JPY, CHF JPY, and Canadian dollars JPY. These three could be very interesting to continue lower. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to go a little bit faster with the other pairs. That's not good at all. Canadian dollar CHF. Okay. It's not great on the weekly, but on the daily, maybe we can have something here. It's not as good as the JPY pairs, of course, but let's just keep an eye on it. Euro CHF. Mm, nope, don't like it. GBP CHF. Don't like it either. New Zealand dollar CHF. Nope. Okay. Let's just keep an eye on Canadian dollar CHF. But it's weird because all these other pairs look like they want to continue higher. Canadian dollar CHF is the only one that seems like it wants to continue lower. So be careful with this one. Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. I think we had it on the interest list last week, but right now I just don't like it so much. Okay, let's put it back on the interest list because I still see a path towards this weekly fair value gap, but it's lower probability than it was last week. Let's just say that. Okay, but let's keep it on the interest list. Euro Canadian, that was not on the interest list last week, and I don't think it deserves to be this week either. Because is that a monthly? Yeah, that's a monthly fair value gap. Don't like this. GBP Canadian dollar. Yeah, actually, you know what? That's not so bad. We have this high that we are really close to reaching. It's the next logical target, and we have taken this high, and now the next target is obviously all the way up there. The market has been, I like this move right here. So this move like this, I think it's a nice staircase up. It seems like a pretty high probability leg. And right now we have a beautiful, perfect daily fair value gap right here. And so that does look great. Which with also another thing, bunch of fair value areas to the left, like this, for example. That's a fair value area. So yeah, that's really good here. Let's keep an eye on it. Um, New Zealand dollar, Canadian dollar. Yeah, no, that's no, I don't like this one. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar to continue lower, technically. Yep, we're continuing lower here. Okay, well, we have this target, which is the rejection low from the weekly fair value gap, but it seems like the rejection failed. We are respecting that last daily fair value gap pretty well. So I would like to wait here and see, can we create the 4-hour fair value gap? Because if we do, then we can have a sting back into it to continue lower. That's actually not too bad. Euro, New Zealand dollar. Yeah, I see the case again where we could reach this low, which is a rejection low. Yeah, that's not too bad. Continue lower. GBP New Zealand dollar. Yeah, that also looks bearish to me. For the short term at least, but it's just not as interesting as the other ones. Euro, Australian dollar. Yeah, that's very bearish. Well, actually not. Mm, no, no. Actually, I don't like this. And then GBP Australian dollar is the same thing. Okay. So yeah, I would prioritize the JPY pairs, especially for tomorrow, because they're gonna hike the interest rates. So yeah, I would take a look at these, and then we have a couple other good ones, but the other ones are gonna be probably more interesting towards the rest of the week. But for tomorrow, if you're gonna trade acrosses, it's gonna be JPY pair for sure. Okay, guys, so recapping here, the dollar overall, I'm still bullish because we created a weekly fair value gap. We still need to reach this major high right here. So still bullish, but on the short term, so for just tomorrow, for example, I don't want to look at any majors right now. Okay, just because the dollar is just it has nothing interesting right now. Then on the metals, I see higher prices for the beginning of the week. We can see it clearly here on silver. I think that's the cleanest chart we have this week. It's silver. And so we can have, um, for the beginning of the week, we see higher prices. And then once we reach that fair value area, price can reverse and finally reach this liquidity down here. So, yeah, so overall, I would say lower on for the week on the metals. Then on crude oil, I see lower prices to start the week, but then after that, maybe not this week, but as soon as we reach that inside this monthly fair value gap, then we should see higher prices for the rest of the week. Bitcoin, just simply a sting inside that weekly fair value gap to continue lower. That's all there is here. And then on the indices, same thing as the metals. So if we take the S&P, for example, just a sting back inside that weekly fair value gap to continue lower. And then the crosses, I'm not going to go all over all of them. I've been over all of them recently. So, all right, guys, that's it for the weekly forecast for this upcoming week. And I will be doing, I don't know if I'm going to be posting it today or tomorrow, depending on how much time I have, but I will post a stock forecast because if my theory is right on the indices, if I'm right, then we might have a good buying opportunity in the stock market pretty soon. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna be doing a very long, it's gonna be probably more than an hour, maybe even more than 2 hours of stock analysis. But if you're interested, it's gonna be there, and I'll be sharing my stock picking strategy, kind of what I'm looking for, and what are the stocks I'm keeping on my watch list for when the S&P is gonna reach lower somewhere in this area probably. So when price goes all the way back down to, 6,800, then I might start. Well, we actually, there's something we can do here because we do have a daily range. And you see that my arrow that I drew right here was pretty accurate. I think now we're gonna be in a correction right now because price went up way too much, and this move lower here is pretty strong. And right now the retracement that we're seeing higher is only the retracement from the 0.25 level. And so I don't know. I think yeah, the S&P at least should go all the way back down to 6,800, and that is going to create some really good buying opportunities here, okay? And so anyways, I'm going to be doing a stock forecast, and I'll post it on the channel and you guys can access it. I'll make sure to include timestamps in it so that you can skip to the parts that you're actually interested in. All right, lads. Well, thank you for listening. Have a good week of trading, and I will see you in tomorrow's daily forecast. Ciao.